I need to show up and be diligent in the work that he's called me to do and work hard and work faithfully and do everything with excellence. But at the end of the day, the results are his.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. I'm back today with Aby Rinella, and we are just having a great time talking this week about what God is doing, what he's doing in the homeschool community, what he's doing in our families and in our lives and through the summertime. And so we love just getting to catch up. As we were on the road and as Aby was talking to people at convention and just, the people that she's come in contact with, one of the things that people kept saying over and over is, we love it when you and Aby are on together. We love hearing you guys talk and we love talking. And so that's what we're doing.
I heard that so many times and it was fun at convention. I can't tell you how many people came up and said, oh my goodness, we listen. It was so fun to meet the people on the other side. And I was so blessed. But they did say, some of our favorites is just listening to you guys, like friends in a living room. And that's what we are. We're just moms. We're the same.
Right.
We're all in it together.
Yep. Amen, sister. Before we roll back into our conversation, though, I want to thank our sponsor, CTC Math. If you guys are looking for a great math curriculum, go to ctcmath.com. They are an online program. You can try them out for free, ctcmath.com. So Aby, we talked a little bit about your trip, about your family and, not your trip, about your family. We talked about your Called Beyond trips and events that you had.
Yes.
And convention and just some of the changes that we're seeing in the homeschool world, which are really exciting, I think. What is the one thing that you have been most encouraged by this year? And just in thinking through whether it's convention or homeschooling or, whatever, what has encouraged you the most in the world of homeschooling?
I would say, well, it's kind of in the world of homeschooling, but it's also in the world of we had an insanely, awesomely busy May and June, just things that God kept putting on our plate. And I would say it is encouraged by, but maybe one of my greatest lessons is when God calls you to do something, whether it's homeschooling, whether it's speaking, whether it's anything, when you release it and surrender it to him, he shows up and he does the impossible. And he does what I constantly say, I can't do all this. Like, Lord, I have a June with 3 major, major things that you've called us to and all unrelated from one another. So there's no carryover, and it was interesting because with each big thing that I had, there was definitely a major attack that I felt, like something that could have totally tripped it up. But God showed up over and over and did what I could never do and did the miraculous. And as I'm going into planning this next year, here's something wild and crazy. I have my first high schooler.
Yeah, yay.
And as I'm going into that this fall, and I've been looking at a lot of planning that this year, I'm like, you know what? God has shown me that he shows up in the biggest, most impossible things. And he's going to show up every day of my homeschool. And he's going to show up on the hard days. And just as I'm planning the year to just fully surrender it and release it to him, knowing that he can do more with my surrender and release and obedience than I could ever do with planning. So I think that's, I know that and I've known that forever, but it's just cool to be reminded again and again and again and again of that.
Yeah.
So,
which is a good reminder to hold our planning lightly. When we're planning for the school year, which most of us are doing now, if you haven't started, maybe start in the next couple of weeks, figure out what you're doing with your kids. By the way, if you're new to the podcast and you missed our homeschool survival series that we did, it was fantastic. We had so many amazing guests on who just talked through all the different teaching styles and learning styles. And it was amazing. I think we started that sometime back in February or so.
Yeah. And that would be a great one for summer because that's going to just give you the foundation you need to start this fall.
Yes. So you can go back and listen to those episodes, but this is a great time to start planning. And so as we plan, we set our plans before the Lord, but then we just hold them with a loose grip and allow the Lord to kind of direct our year.
And we need to show up. Like we need to show up and do the work he's called us to do. That's what I really kept seeing this spring is like, I need to show up and be diligent in the work that he's called me to do and work hard and work faithfully and do everything with excellence. But at the end of the day, the results are his. The results are his. And I think it goes the same with homeschooling. I show up, I do what God's asked me to do, but the results are his. God already has a plan for who my children are going to be and what they're going to do and what their lives are going to look like. the results are his, but we need to show up and we need to, work diligently at what he's called us to do.
Yeah. Amen. All right. I want to go back
So-
to convention with you really quickly. What did you speak on? Because I know that you spoke several times at your convention. You also kind of emceed the whole event.
Oh my word.
What were some of the topics you spoke on?
Well, I did a big one for the whole group on this whole school choice / ESA's funding for school. We did a big one on that. So I did that. And then I spoke on, why homeschool? What does the Bible have to say? Does God's word say anything about it? And then ministry and motherhood. We just talked about how being a mom is the greatest ministry above all things and how important that is. And then, I did one called, Are You Planning God Out of Your Homeschool? And it was for like the people like me, the type A, the planners, I like to organize and plan, and just how we need to, like we said, we just need to make sure that we're constantly seeking the Lord in each of those things. And we don't depend and rely on our plans as opposed to his plans.
Yeah. Love it.
And then I was able to, which is really cool, I was able to kind of facilitate a leaders session with all the different co-op and support group leaders. And just listen to what's going on in all these different groups. And like we talked about either earlier or the last episode is just the shift and the change and how small local groups are handling the influx of new homeschoolers and different philosophies and all of that. So it was really interesting to listen and get a beat on what's happening out there on the more local level.
Yeah. That's so fun. I got to speak to leaders too in Florida, and that was fun. I actually talked on the topic of Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Esther, and how, which we've talked tons about on this podcast, just how we're created on purpose for a purpose, and God gives each one of us, talents, gifts, and abilities to use for his kingdom, and that we are here for such a time as this to impact his world. And so that was fun. And then I got to talk on homeschooling girls, which we are going to do another whole episode on that, which is super exciting and fun because I have girls.
Yes.
And
you have two moms here with two girls. We each have two girls.
Yeah. So we are going to.
Then I got a boy thrown into the mix, which really throws a loop into things.
So much fun. So fun. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
What we do at IEW is break through the noise of the grammar and the writing prompts, and we say, this is what you do, step by step. And I've witnessed it over and over again, both watching Andrew teach and hearing from parents, this is the best writing program. We've made it so easy and made it really affordable. So any mom can teach writing to their children using our course, and we guarantee it.
To try 3 weeks of free lessons, visit IEW.com. We are back with Aby Rinella. You're drinking hot coffee right now, and I can't even imagine that because it's like 100 degrees outside right now.
That is insane.
I know. How are you drinking a hot drink? I'm drinking ice water.
Well, because I tell you, we talk about this all the time. Where I live, I wake up in the morning and it is, we leave our windows open to get fresh air at night, and it is freezing.
In the summertime?
Like, oh yeah, like we're in sweatpants and sweatshirts. And then so we don't have air conditioning here because we don't get that hot. So then we slam the house shut once it gets a little warmer, and it keeps all the cold inside. So the house stays cool. And so, but I don't care if it was at 800 degrees, I'd be drinking coffee in the morning. Like that's a lifeline. But we just don't get that heat. I mean, I told you it's going to be 92, I read, at the end of next week. And I like people are panicking.
That sounds delightful.
It snowed. Okay. So, get this. So we hiked up into our fun little, like just a fun little lake. We just went to with some friends, and they were swimming in the lake. Because I'm not that ridiculous. And there was literally snow on our hike.
Oh my
we're walking and there's snow, and we're jumping. We, meaning not me, but everybody else, jumping in the ice cold, literally ice cold, probably not healthy for your body lake. So
no. That sounds miserable.
Yes, I'm drinking hot coffee. It's amazing. It's my dream.
So funny.
Humidity is my nightmare, and heat is my nightmare.
Yeah, humidity is bad. It's bad. And I remembered how bad it was for my hair when we got to the real South, when we got to Georgia and Florida.
Wait, is it humid where you are right now?
No, not really. It's a little, it's funny because people in Oklahoma think it's humid, and I'm like, oh no.
But you're like,
you go to Georgia and Florida, that's humid.
That's crazy. But get this, I've only been to a humid place once, like 100 years ago. And I got up in the morning. I'm like, you don't have to put lotion on. Like I'm putting lotion on multiple times a day just because our skin turns to leather here. Like
so crazy.
You know, those pictures of the women in like the high altitude of like Peru, like that's what I'm going to look like any day.
Yeah. Well, move to Oklahoma.
So
it's the perfect
you don't have
mix.
to wear lotion.
No.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's just dry enough and it's just moist enough. It's perfect.
You just talk constantly about how Oklahoma is the perfect
It's because I'm
place
trying to
be.
get you to move here with me. That's why.
Oh, is that what it is?
And it's great. We love it here. Yeah. It's in the middle of the country and it's like this perfect mix of everything. So,
And you get to say y'all, which I love.
Y'all and you guys.
Okay, so tell me about here's why I haven't talked to you so long. You guys were like traveling across the country for 5 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell everybody. Tell me. Tell everybody.
Well, okay. So yeah, I would love to say that it was an absolutely incredible, amazing trip and everything went perfectly and that it was our dream. That is not the truth. I'll be super honest with you actually about this.
I love you. And I love that we can talk about the truth.
Yeah. Well, okay. It was amazing in a lot of ways. God did incredible things. We got to meet incredible people. We got to meet tons of people who listen to the podcast, tons of people who have seen the movie. And just that part of it was worth every bit of the angst of the trip.
Right.
Truly it was. I mean, just to see what God is doing through the Schoolhouse Rocked ministry was amazing. And getting to meet people face to face, there's just nothing like it. I mean, it's
right.
incredible to get emails from people and messages and so encouraging. And we need that. And we love that. But at the same time, just getting to meet people face to face, there's just something different about, because, you know, we're humans and we're made for relationship and connection. So, so that was funny. Oh, here's a really funny story. This is one of the funniest things that happened, possibly the funniest thing that happened on the trip. We were in Florida and we had just arrived at the hotel where we were, you know, I was going to be speaking, and we were showing the movie. We showed the movie 6 times at FPEA, which is the big Florida convention. And so that was fun. Just getting to show it to so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people saw the movie. And so we got to the hotel. The girls and I were standing out front, and not even in the lobby, but we were like outside out front. And I was like, oh, it's so humid here. But Garrett was parking the car. So we're just standing there with our luggage for us all to walk in together because we're cheap. And it's like this fancy hotel. And so you have to pay. They don't have bell carts that you can just grab and load up your luggage on.
Oh, really? Okay. Which, by the way, let me interrupt, because I have traveled with your family and entered a hotel, not traveled, but I have been at a hotel from an airport with you guys, and I've never seen anything like it because you guys have, like, I was in awe. I wish I would have done like a Facebook Live or something with your family, because you guys have everything for convention. So your booth stuff, you have stuff to travel for weeks. So you have, and there's 4 of you and there's 3 girls. And
it's insane.
It was like, because like, there's like me who we do a lot of backpacking. So I'm like, you need 3 weeks worth of stuff on your back and no more. And then with you guys, it was so awesome. It was my favorite. So I can just imagine you're standing outside this hotel.
Yeah, it's so funny. And, you know, our poor girls, we're like loading ourselves up with all this stuff. Anyway, so we're standing outside, and this lady runs up to me. Her name is Jennifer. She's my new friend. And she's running towards me, and she's like literally like kind of running, and she's like waving her arms, and she's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're here. And she said, I watch your channel. And for some reason I was like, is she talking to me?
Channel.
And I kind of like looked around for a second because I thought she had the wrong person. It was so hilarious. Funny. And I said, oh, the Schoolhouse Rocked channel? And she said, yes. So she watches this on YouTube because we have a YouTube channel. So lots of people watch it.
Okay.
But most people listen. And for some reason in my mind, like it didn't register. And I seriously was like, I think she thinks I'm someone else.
Oh my goodness.
But no, she watches the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast on YouTube. And it was so funny. And I just can imagine the look on my face of surprise, like, me? Are you talking to me?
Oh,
and it was so sweet. So I got to meet her, and her whole family was there. And then she and her daughter came to my session on homeschooling girls, and I got a chance to talk with her, and it was exciting. But it was just hysterically funny because I'm like, I'm not a
Who are
celebrity,
you
you know,
talking to?
I'm just a mama just like you trying to figure it all out.
That is so
it was funny. But anyway, so going back to the beginning of our trip, we started out going to Illinois. So the first leg of our trip was that we did this little tour through Illinois. So we left Oklahoma and we were heading to St. Louis the first night to get close to where we needed to be for the next day. We loaded up our van and it was like, man, just leading up to this trip, just attack after attack. And you talked about this, you know, when oftentimes when we're doing work for the Lord, the enemy does everything he can to attack us in any and every way possible. And 100%. We felt it leading up to it. I mean, it was physical attacks, spiritual attacks, emotional attacks. It was crazy. Yeah. So we finally get to the day that we're leaving. We've been working hard leading up to this day. We get everything packed in our minivan. We had just gotten our van back that week. The transmission in our truck is almost totally out, but we can still drive it around town. So we couldn't take our truck. We drive an excursion typically. That's what we always take on our trips, but we couldn't take the excursion because we were driving over 3,000 miles. So we were like, okay, we're going to trust that the minivan's going to make it. And so we bought this 2011 Honda Odyssey last year. And it's a little bit worn, but we're like, you know, it'll be fine. So we took it to the mechanic because the air conditioning had gone out on it. So we got the air conditioner fixed. We loaded up on Saturday. At about noon, we had some things to finish that morning before we could get on the road. And our first event was the next day. So we didn't have to be there at a certain time that Saturday. But we get it all loaded up. We drive out of our neighborhood. And as soon as we drive out, we're like, there's hot air blowing. There's no air conditioning.
Oh, my word.
And it was blazing hot that day. And so we were like, what are we going to do? And so we ran to Walmart real quick. We came back. And we just prayed and we were like, Lord, we don't know what to do here. We're supposed to be in St. Louis tonight and we can't take this trip without air conditioning. There was no way because it was Saturday, you know, everything was closed by that time. So long story short, we ended up having to rent a minivan, if you can imagine that, for 5 weeks. And the Lord provided the perfect minivan. And honestly, we were like, okay, Lord, maybe our van would not have made it. And we're just trusting that.
Right. And he's protecting you.
Right. So we got a brand new minivan that we got to rent. So we had to drive to the Tulsa airport, pick up the rental, drive it back to our house, unload our van, reload the new van.
All in your driveway?
All in our driveway.
Just like stuff.
Get everything situated again. By the time we got on the road, it was 6:30 in the evening.
Oh,
so we didn't arrive in St. Louis till like 1:30 in the morning. It was crazy. But we finally got there.
And that was the start to the trip.
That was literally how our trip started. And so it kind of started off on a really stressful note. And at the same time, just like, okay, Lord, you provided what we needed. We are on the road. It was crazy expensive. We used all of our air miles and had to pay a bunch of money to rent this van, but we were able to use our air miles for part of it. Anyway, so then we toured through Illinois and that was fun. Again, got to meet lots of new people, lots of people who had never even heard of Schoolhouse Rocked or listened to the podcast, but had heard about this homeschool movie that was being shown. And so they came and it was just a sweet time of fellowship with people that we didn't even know, but just people who are part of the body of Christ. So then from there, we went to the ARC encounter where we did 2 back-to-back conferences. And that was, again, just incredible to see God's hand at work through the people speaking, through the different vendors that we got to hang out with that week. It was a long week. Doing 1 3-day conference is a lot.
I cannot imagine how exhausting.
It was crazy. So doing 2 back-to-back was just insane.
Oh, yeah.
But the team at the ARC did an incredible job. And it was really cool. As a matter of fact, this is just a little side note. We got to talk to some of their team who works there at the Creation Museum and at the ARC. And they are now carrying Schoolhouse Rocked, the DVDs.
No way.
Yeah, in the bookstore at the Creation Museum.
That.
Yeah. I don't know if it's at
Which,
the ARC.
by the way, the Creation I haven't been to the Creation, but the ARC, those bookstores are
amazing. Yeah.
Like, it's like a homeschool mom's dream.
Yeah, it is. So I don't know if they're at the ARC. We know they're at the Creation Museum because we had some friends
That's awesome.
Who were there. So that's an exciting side note. So if you were going to the ARC or Creation Museum, take a picture of the DVD.
Yeah.
There for us. Anyway, so that was a great
conference. By the way, the DVD was a huge hit at our conference.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people were lining up to get it.
That's awesome.
So if you haven't gotten yours, you're like behind the eight
Yeah,
ball now.
yeah, you can still purchase it. Schoolhouserocked.com is where you get them. So we did the ARC. Then from there, we went to South Carolina. We did an event, a movie night event at Bob Jones University on their university campus.
Cool.
That was incredible. Got to do a Q&A after that one and talk to lots of people. And then from there, we went to Georgia, spent some time with family, and then headed down to Florida and did FPEA, the Florida convention there. And then from there, we went back to Georgia for a couple of nights and then headed back home to Oklahoma. So it was a crazy
Absolutely
trip.
exhausted.
It was exhausting. There were a lot of things that were just really hard. It was just a discouraging trip.
Yeah.
And so we came back from that trip completely overwhelmed, exhausted, and spent in every way. And so the Lord showed us a lot of things, which in the next episode, we're going to talk about some of the things that the Lord is doing just in our family, kind of as a result of that trip, but also as a result of just where we are as a family right now. So we're out of time.
Right.
so
let's come. Now I'm dying. We're all on the edge of our seats.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. Here's your cliffhanger for the week. We will be back tomorrow to talk about those things. But we talked about the movie. If you guys haven't yet seen the movie, go to schoolhouserocked.com. You can stream it. You can rent it or purchase it for streaming. Or, of course, you can purchase the DVD, schoolhouserocked.com. Invite your friends to watch it. That was one of the most exciting things, is to hear about churches all over the place who are showing the movie at the ARC. The ARC Encounter, the homeschool events that we did there, people came from everywhere, all over the country for these events. And so we had people telling us from everywhere that they had shown it at their churches, their homeschool
Yeah, I'm
groups.
getting a lot of families
Yep.
having family night where they invite 3-4 other
Yep.
families
Yeah.
and watch it. And that's been cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. So encourage people to watch it, encourage people to purchase it, to rent it, to stream it, whatever, so that they can see it, because people need this encouragement. So if you haven't seen it, schoolhouserock.com. Thanks for listening today. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Well, first of all, I think the quality of education has steadily deteriorated in America.
Tell me about your education, if you don't mind telling us about it.
So I was a military kid. I went to a bunch of public schools, and I would say my education is pretty mediocre. My math and science skills are pretty low, probably based on, I don't know if it's lower than average, but what's that saying, you know? I'd say overwhelmingly meh.
From your perspective, how do you think the public schools in America are doing?
Not great. I think mostly public schools about indoctrination right now. I know that standardization, the increase in that, has caused a lot of teachers to sort of lose their passion.
I taught kindergarten in a traditional public school, and the curriculum with the mandated testing has changed so much. There's really no time for play, socialization. It's just numbers, alphabet, words, phonics.
I have been in situations where parents are trying to help third graders with their homework, and they can't do it because it doesn't make sense. We find that the student will say, well, if I don't do it, the way my teacher said, then it doesn't matter if I had the right answer.
Right.
It's wrong.
We grow up in a system, typically, that we think that we need somebody up at a blackboard writing it down, and us taking, there's a standard protocol to learning. And I think that that's stifling. It certainly stifled me when I was in school.
I, for one, was a child who was pretty much always just painfully bored in school. I just remember most of school was about how to survive this excruciating boredom and staying in one spot, and you couldn't work ahead, you couldn't do anything other than what everybody else was doing. For me, real life started when school ended.
I did not enjoy learning, and I was dissuaded from writing because I was told I was math and science, and I did love math and science, and now I'm an author. Mm-hmm. So go figure.
So what do you think the solution is?
I don't have any solutions, but it's definitely not going well.
And it's not easy to come up with, here's the one solution. In other words, dear old United States government, they can't legislate and come up with a solution that's universal.
no one is really able to change the great Titanic of institutional education. It is going along its path, and it is essentially unturnable and unchangeable. I mean, let's face it, if money could have fixed public education, it would have done so long ago. If the newest iteration of standards could have changed public education, it would have done so long ago. And so we continue to throw things that don't work at this great ship of institutional education, trying to change what it is, and it's not worked, and it's not likely to work until it really kind of breaks apart and has to be redesigned. And in the meantime, what's happening, people are not waiting for it to sink and break apart. They're jumping off and finding other ways to get where they want to go.